for Big Spoon?
It could be, but you got to get a little bit, like, warm up to each other a little bit before you're just like, you're going to Big Spoon me now, right?
You don't just initiate the spoon cold. There has to be, like, confirmation that that's what's going on.
Right. Right. So back is, like, super safe, plus your tits are in the air, and she obviously didn't complain about him staring at him.
Well, what else is there to look at in the room, Jade? I ask you. There's nothing.
I mean, what other reason did she keep her blanket down around her waist?
That's what I'm saying. It was really awkward way she laid down, like flat on her back, blankets to her waist, staring at the ceiling, rigid, like, girl, relax. Richard's a gentleman. He probably wouldn't try anything anyways. He knows the deal at this point, but that's not how people sleep.
It was all tactic.
I think I see your point. I do. I do.
I mean, he looks at her and he thinks she looks so beautiful, and he can't look at her, but he also can't look away. And he asks Kahlan what she said to Adie when she gave her the bone necklace, because it's his fucking business. She obviously didn't say it in a different language because you were the only other person in the room and she didn't want you to hear it.
Right. None of your fucking business. Especially knowing about the whole Kahlan's mom and the bone thing.
Right.
Like, you know that's significant. Leave it the fuck alone, dude. If it ain't common knowledge, then it ain't for you.
Right. I would have said it in fucking a language you could understand if I wanted you to understand. All right, bud?
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of personal information that may or may not be any of your business, she said, look, I thanked Adie, but I told her I didn't think I would live long enough to have a child. More info than you would normally give a stranger here, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, you'd be like, oh, dude, thank you for helping me out. I have my personal doubts, but I'm not going to tell you about that as you give me the one thing to go on this mission that I may die doing.
And it also makes Adie's response to it a little bit strange, too, because Adie just, like, patted her on the shoulder. I was like, you guys need to go to sleep.
Right. No, Adie was like, yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
It's kind of deep. I don't want to get into that.
Right.
Where's my slippers?
Ah, well, bedtime, huh?
Yeah. Slipper. Because.
Ooh, yeah. Slipper.
And at this point, Richard gets kind of hot and bothered about the whole situation. He's like, why the fuck did you say that? And Kahlan tells her that there's madness loose in her homeland. She's but one against many. And she's not saying that she thinks they're going to fail, but that she's not going to live long enough to know either way. So, what's the point in planning a baby? Which, I mean, practicality. I appreciate that.
Right, well, obviously this is the wrong fucking time to have a baby.
Right.
But I also feel like that shouldn't be that hard of a conclusion to come to. Like, yeah, you have some shit going on. People's lives are busy. That's why they wait to have children until they, like, build their careers. Well, hopefully. You're right in the thick of it. So obviously you're not like, yeah, might be on a mission for the next who the fuck knows how long. Let's have a baby right now. Obviously not the right move.
Right. But she let a whole bunch of people die for this mission that she apparently ultimately didn't think was going to be successful in the long run, despite whoever was picked, and especially not because one of the people that she cares about was picked. And that's where Richard realizes that she's kind of not thinking that he's going to make it either.
Yeah, which, fuck you. Yeah, she cares about him, and so she doesn't want him to die, but dude, you're sworn to protect me here, for one. For two, I swore my ass to do this stuff, and I'm gonna do it one way or another, so if I fail, I'm gonna die, and, like, I'm invested in this. You had damn well better be just as invested as I am. I'm not doing this because I think I'm gonna fail. Like, I'm doing this to try and get through it.
Right. But at this point, Kahlan obviously believes that she's leading them to their death. And there's really nothing else to do. Because running, they've already been told by Shar, is sure death. So Richard is just kind of gonna embrace this at this point. He kisses his finger and then touches the bone on her necklace and says, I add my oath of protection to you and any child you may have in the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing to do, but at the same time, like, maybe get a paternity test first?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're hoping that those kids are going to be yours, but maybe don't swear oaths to things you aren't sure about yet.
Right. It seems really premature, especially with such a practical girl like Kahlan. I feel like her immediate response would be, no, why the fuck would you do that?
Yeah, because they've only known each other for a hot minute, and he's telling her at this point, I would trade no day with you for one day in safe slavery. Which, I get, slavery sucks, but, like, you don't know what the days with her are going to be like.
Right. Easy, fella. You just met.
I accepted my post as Seeker of my own free will. If Darkin sends the whole world into madness, we will die with swords in our hands, not chains on our wings.
Now that I can get behind.
Yeah.
If we fail, we're going to die, but we're going to die trying. Respect.
Right. It is a very impassioned speech that he gives here.
Now, I got a visual when I read this, and that visual was, well, me. Like, I was raised, you stick up for yourself, you stick up for your lady, and you know what? The guy who's challenging you might well kick your ass, but that doesn't mean you back down. Like, you're going down swinging. So it's always been my personal mission, like, okay, you might kick my ass, but I'm going to make you remember me. You know, You're going to know you fought me. And I feel like Darkin Rahl is this big ass burly dude who's like, I'm going to knock the fuck out of you, Richard. And Richard's this scrawny little scrapper who like gets him with a nail on like a missed punch kind of. But it's way back then, medieval times. There's not great medical supplies around, and maybe Darkin Rahl just gets an infection and dies. But yeah, that's just kind of the way I pictured this. Like, yeah, either way, we're gonna mark him.
We're gonna fuck him up.
Right.
Kahlan smiled and said if Darkin knew you as I do, he would have reason to lose sleep. I thank the spirits that the Seeker has no cause to come after me in anger. You have an odd talent for making me feel better, even when telling me of my death.
Weird.
Yeah?
We say this sometimes. I can cheer you up when you're having a bad day and vice versa, but like, I don't think there's much you could tell me if you were like, Nate, I have some really bad news.
I know, but I kind of get that because you can make me, like you said, you can make me feel good pretty much. No matter what. We can talk about really anything and you can find a way to spin it.
Well.
Then she passes out. And he watches her sleep for a while before he passes out and thinks his last thoughts of the night about her. Of course. Because what else would he be thinking about?
Well, tits. But you know her.
Yeah.
Her tits.
Her tits. Yeah.
Morning comes dreary and damp, but not rainy. Kahlan gives Adie a hug, and Richard told her to please tell Chase a message from the Seeker. Now this is something special. He says, tell him he is to go back to Heartland and warn the first counselor that the boundary will be down soon. Tell Michael to gather the army to protect against Rahl's forces. You need to be ready to fight at any invasion. Westland must not fall like the Midlands. Anybody that crosses the boundary should be treated like an invader. Tell Michael that Rahl is the one that killed our father. Those who come are not coming in peace. We are at war, and I am already at battle.
Like a badass.
Like a fucking boss. He goes on to say, look, if my brother or the army don't listen, Chase is to abandon the government and gather the wardens to stand against Rahl's legions. If they have to shed blood, they may lose their spirit. You know, like if the Daharans have to kill people coming in, because that's not really their MO yet, they've just kind of politically taken over, then maybe they're going to lose their taste for battle. He's like, look, we show no mercy, we take no fucking prisoners, and I take no joy in giving these orders, but it's how Darkin fights. Either way, we meet him on his terms or we die on them. A question I had about this whole message is why would anyone think that these orders give him joy? Like, obviously, it's a very serious thing. Who do they think Richard is?
I think that's his point, though. Like, that some commanders or leaders take joy in being like, fuck those guys, fuck our enemies, take no prisoners, have no mercy, kill every motherfucker who you see. And he's not saying that because he believes that that's the way you should fight people. He's saying that because that's how Darkin is going to fight, so they have to fight that way, or they're going to be wiped out.
Darkin's gonna fight dirty, we gotta be ready to get down too.
Right.
That makes sense. He goes on to say, once Chase has the army and the wardens in place, he is free to come and help me if he wants, because we have to stop Rawl above all else. Tell my brother I love him and that I miss him, as a last little fucking pin on the end. He looked at Adie and asked if she would remember all that. Well, write it the fuck down, asshole.
Do we know what Richard can write so far?
Yeah, he read and rewrote the Book of Counted Shadows word for word.
That's true. I was going to say, maybe he's illiterate. Maybe we're being crazy, but he did. You're absolutely fucking right. So yeah, write it down. Don't be a dick.
Adie replies that she doesn't think she could forget a word, but I'm telling you, I just spoke for the last maybe 2 minutes. Could you repeat word for word what I just said?
Nah, man.
Even having read the book, even this being not your first reread of the book?
And writing all the notes?
Fuck no, I couldn't remember that, dude. Right, and writing the notes. Say, hey, give him this message. Problem solved.
And I feel like Michael, the first counselor, would take a letter handwritten from his brother, the Seeker, a little bit more seriously than third-hand hearsay through
an employee.
Yeah. Who knows if Michael knows Chase and Richard's relationship?
Right. Chase would just show up saying, hey, Richard says all this stuff. And like, who the fuck are you, though?
We're friends. And he'd be like, oh, yeah? What the fuck does that mean to me? I've never seen you.
Which is actually another point I had. Who does Richard think he is issuing orders?
And he's saying, oh, I take no joy. But you know what? You went from being just the lowly woods guy to giving orders real fucking quick, and you didn't hesitate. And so, yeah, you do enjoy it, like a little bit.
Right, you obviously thought to issue some orders. Like, nobody else would even think they could. That's not something you can do. You can't just say, hey, Army, go do this shit. These are my orders.
Right, his balls have already swelled because of the Seeker gig, because it's the second time it's happened, too, because at the end, in the last chapter, he did the same thing. He was like, hey, put all this shit on your ledgers and have my brother pay, or I'll put people's heads on pikes, okay?
He's just fucking steamrolling his way through Westland. He's the hero of the story, and ironically, from people in the Westland's point of view, he's a big old dick.
Mm-hmm.
But Adie replies, look, I don't think I could forget a word. What do you want me to tell the wizard? And Richard says, I'm sorry we couldn't wait, but I know you'll understand. You can find us once you're well with the Nightstone, because the Nightstone, you can track it. And I hope by then to have found one of the boxes.
Just by luck.
Yeah, by sheer fucking dumb luck. Kahlan knows the Midlands, but she doesn't know where the boxes are. Richard admittedly wishes he could wake Zed up to ask him where he thinks one might be.
You know what? I feel like your point about writing letters is like a huge one at this point, because at first I thought he said a whole lot more to Chase than he did to Zed, right? But then I realized he didn't even say any of that to Chase. He said all that to say to his brother through Chase.
Right. He gave Chase a direction for the president and the army to follow.
And didn't even go like, hey, bud, thanks.
Nothing like that.
So it would have been real nice, like real nice, a nice little touch for him to have written a letter to his brother, written a letter to Chase, and written a letter to Zed. Maybe even one to Emma, being like, hey, thanks for all that shit. Sorry I took your husband and made him have a coma.
Yeah, she doesn't know where he is at this point.
Mm-mm.
He just never came home.
Right.
And it's been days. And he was like, I'll be right back, sweetie.
Yeah.
Nope.
But the chapter ends with Adie telling them, strength to the Seeker, and to you, child. Grim times lie ahead.
Boy, that instills a lot of fucking confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah, thanks, Pitt.